All right, today's question is, what does God's presence mean to you personally? We're in Exodus 33, and we're coming off the heels of that golden calf disaster in chapter 32. Israel done messed up bad, and now they're going to find out what it really costs when you sin against a holy God. So we're going to see God's presence or bust. So in verses 1 through 6, God says, "Go on without me." The Lord says to Moses, "Get going. I'll send an angel before you, but I'm not going to travel among you because you are a stubborn and rebellious people." Now, that's a heavy word right there. God says, "I'll give you the land. I'll keep my promise, but I'm out." Why? Because if he did, in his holiness, he'd destroy them on the spot. God's presence is not something you can live without. All the blessings in the world mean nothing if God ain't in the middle of it. And when the people heard it, they mourned and stopped wearing their jewelry. They finally got it. Sin had broken their fellowship with God. In verses 7 through 11, we see the tent of meeting. Now, here's a sweet section. Moses sets up this special tent outside the camp, and anyone who wants to seek the Lord could go there. And listen to this. It says, inside the tent of meeting, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. That's intimacy. That's a relationship. And right here is where we meet someone special again. It says, afterward, he would return to the camp, but the young man who assisted him, Joshua, would remain behind in a tent of meeting. So Joshua, he's hungry for the presence of the Lord. He wasn't in a rush. That young man would be used later on to lead Israel into the promised land. God don't just use people who are talented. He uses people who linger in his presence. In verses 12 through 17, we see Moses pleading for God's presence. So Moses, he's not satisfied with angels or promises. He wants God himself. He says, if you don't personally go with us, don't make us leave this place. That's the cry of a true shepherd. Moses says, "Lord, I don't want the land without you. I'd rather stay here in the wilderness with you than live in paradise without you." And God answers, "I will indeed do what you have asked me to do. For you have found favor with me, and I know you by name." God listens to intercessors, and the greatest treasure ain't God's gift. It's God himself. In verses 18 through 23, it says, "Show me your glory." So Moses, he gets bold. He says, "Then show me your glorious presence." That is the best request. And God says, "All right, but you can't handle the full blast of glory. You're going to die." So what does God do? He says, "As my glorious presence passes by, I'll hide you in the crevice of the rock and cover you with my hand." We need to be covered by God's grace to behold his glory. And one day, because of Jesus, we will see him face to face. So what's Exodus 33 teaching us? First, sin separates, but God's mercy, it restores. Second, it's not enough to have blessings. You need God's presence. And third, prayer moves the heart of God. Fourth, intimacy with God comes to those who seek him and linger with him. And fifth, God's glory is too much for sinners to handle unless we're hidden in the rock, who is Christ. This chapter reminds us that you can't settle for religion or rituals or riches. You need God. And thank the Lord, in Jesus, we don't just get a taste, we get the whole glory someday. So keep reading your Bible and don't be dumb.